Okay, welcome to our next Behind the Melodies interview. We are so excited today to be talking with Marc Moskovitz, cellist and author, who is North Carolina based and actually from Greensboro. He grew up in Greensboro. And we are delighted to be featuring him. This program is a little different from what we normally do because on top of being a beautiful cellist, Marc is also an author and has recently published a historical fiction book called The Eyes of Bach. And so we are going to feature his novel as well as his performance as a cellist. But today we're mostly just going to focus on him as a musician. And just on a personal note, I am so honored that I get to play with Marc in Pro Musica Chamber Orchestra in Ohio. I respect him so much as a player, and he's such a beautiful musician. So I'm really excited that we will get to hear him play here in Greensboro. So Marc, for this project, you're doing a lot of different things, wearing some different hats, author, cellist, all of those things. But today, let's talk about how you got started on the cello. So can you tell us that story?
Sure. Well, I come from a family of musicians. My mother's side of the family were European immigrants who fled Germany in the 30s. My grandfather was a fabulous pianist, although he made his living as a ophthalmologist. But if he could have done it, I think in any way he wanted to, I think he would have been a professional pianist. He accompanied Isaac Stern and Leonard Rose at times from his home base in Springfield, Missouri. So he was very, very accomplished, and he was a very early influence on my studies. My father was a violinist. Some of you probably remember him. He was from Russian immigrants, grew up in Illinois. And of course, I grew up in a home with a lot of music. My father teaching, playing with his string quartet. So music was never very far away. I had everybody on my mother's side had to play an instrument in that family, and they did a lot of music in the home. One summer when I was, I think, 10, I was at their home in Missouri, and there were a couple of cellos around, and I gravitated towards one of them, and my mother very much fostered that relationship, said she wanted another cellist in her family. And so that's kind of how it went. And then I went through the public school system in Greensboro, played cello through high school, finally decided that's what I was going to do. At least try to make a go of it, and that's kind of how it worked out. So I started at UNCG. I was studying already in high school with the cellist who was the professor at UNCG, and then transferred to the School of the Arts. Graduated from there, and then went off to Indiana, and kind of that was my trajectory. My parents, they fostered a love of music. There was never something that they pushed. I think they both realized from a lot of experience that it could be a very difficult way to make a living. But once I decided that's what I was going to do, they supported me completely.
So obviously for this program, you're going to be doing some playing and then some talking about the book. I know that it's a little hard to stay away from talking about the book when talking about the pieces that you chose to play, because obviously the cello suites are a big feature in the novel. But can you maybe just talk about one of the movements that you're going to play and kind of why you chose to feature that specific movement, or maybe what we can listen for?
Sure. Yeah, so there are 6 cello suites. They're all based on exactly the same plan of a prelude and then a series of 5 dance movements, all basically the same type of dance movements. In a couple occasions, he titled them slightly differently, but all in the same spirit. So he had a basic template for all of them. So I had, a lot to choose from. And I have chosen 3 specific movements based on potential discussions about the book during the course of this book talk. So the second piece that I will play, is the prelude to the second suite, the D minor suite. And that plays, they all play not necessarily a pivotal role, but they tend to come in at critical moments in the book. And the D minor suite is presented the evening before Bach actually undergoes his cataract surgery. So my protagonist is in his room in the Bach household where he's been living for a short period of time. He's about to start practicing the D minor suite, and Bach's wife, Anna Magdalena, knocks on the door, and they basically have a moment where she kind of confesses her feelings and fears about this procedure that's going to take place in the morning, and ultimately, I think, looking for some solace. And Carl, who's a 16-year-old boy at that point, has become ingratiated with the Bach family, and can really offer her very little in the way of experience, but they are kindred spirits. And the D minor suite, I felt, was the kind of appropriate spirit of that kind of solemn moment, where kind of life is hanging in the balance and nobody really knows how it's going to go the next day. But she has trepidation, and can't really do anything except go with the flow, come what may. And she then, after they have their little talk, stays to kind of listen to him because she thinks it will set her at ease. So there are lots of possibilities of things to play, and the other movements I'm going to play are very different in style.
So I don't know the answer to this, but there's a lot of discussion in the book about the last suite, which is written for this 5-string cello. So is this like, do you play the last suite? Like, do people play it now on 4-string cellos?
Yes, I played the last suite a lot. Played it in graduate school. Played it a number of times since then. It is fiendishly difficult on 4 strings because the 5th string, a higher string, offers higher register. That if you don't have that 5th string, you have to play everything up in the higher registers of the cello. So it adds a challenging dimension that certainly was not part of Bach's thinking when he wrote the piece, but because only some people have access to a 5-string cello today, or have kind of spent their time with an instrument like that, cellists who want to play all 6 of the Bach suites have to, come to terms with the technical challenges of playing everything up.
Have you ever played it on a 5-string?
No, I've never even played a 5-string cello.
Okay.
I have friends who do. We know people in the orchestra who do, but I personally have not played one. Yeah.
I've never seen one either, so I didn't even know if they actually existed.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen
them.
And I know Brent Wissick down the street here at UNC. He has one. He has a student, I think, who's playing the 6th suite on the 5-string instrument at this point. So cool. Yeah. There are very few of them that are extant from Bach's day. In the back of the book, I mention I offer a link to somebody at the Smithsonian who's playing the prelude to the 6th suite on a 5-string instrument from the day. But there are many modern incantations of the instrument. Yeah.
Cool. So I know as a musician, you have traveled extensively around the world performing. So do you have either like a favorite place that you've played, or just a favorite performance memory that was special for you in some way that you could kind of tell us about?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I have a number of them, as most musicians do. The first time I was in Europe was with a student orchestra based out of the School of the Arts. And we played in Germany and in Italy. And in Italy, we played in old churches. And that was really my real introduction to kind of European architecture and aesthetic and real coffee, actually, in Germany the first time, because I grew up with my parents drinking, Maxwell House crystals. And the first time I put an espresso to my lips, I was like, what is this? And kind of changed my life. And it was the first time I had the opportunity to play in, an acoustic of a old European church with, very, very high ceilings and resonance like that. And looking at, stone that was put in place hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So I have very distinct memories still of performing in those spaces. And then on the other hand, when I lived in Boston, I played quite a bit in Symphony Hall, where the Boston Symphony plays. Handel and Haydn plays there. Boston Pops plays there. And of all of the halls I've played in, that's probably the one with the most perfect acoustic. And one I think is considered one of the great halls of the world. So very different environment, very different kind of feel, but just in terms of the actual beauty of sound in a space like that is absolutely magnificent. So I feel very fortunate that I've had a chance to play in some pretty magnificent halls. And then one of my favorite performing venues is actually in a much more intimate environment. So I started a concert series well before COVID, probably 10 years before COVID, playing in neighborhood homes in the area where I live. We have a lot of very beautiful houses in the vicinity, and did a lot of chamber music in the neighborhood with colleagues from Greensboro and North Carolina Symphony. And for me, playing in that kind of environment with maybe 20 people listening really close up, the idea of chamber music in its truest nature is for me probably the most enjoyable experience. Very, very different from playing in big halls where you have limited contact with the audience, but very, very satisfying in a completely different regard.
So for our storytelling around the world season, we're sort of talking with our artists about stories, and you've already told us some wonderful stories about yourself. But do you have a story about an experience you've had or a performance or something that kind of gives us a sense of what is life like as a professional musician that you could share?
Yeah, I don't have any specific stories, but I was reflecting on this idea, and of course, it's extremely varied depending on what aspect of musicianship you're involved with. I mean, what a classical musician is doing varies completely different than what somebody in pop music is doing, and what we do in our lives has almost a museum quality on the one hand, where we're keeping alive a tradition that's now several hundred years old, while also kind of pushing the boundaries in towards new music and being a performance outlet for composers for today. So one of the things that's extremely interesting for, I'd say, most classical musicians living today, as opposed to in Beethoven's day, let's say, is that we are not just playing music that was just written, which is typical of kind of what musicians in Beethoven's day were doing, or Haydn's day, where they're basically waiting for the composer to finish it and put it on their music stand for them to play it. We are playing music from hundreds of years ago, and also what's brand spanking new today. So it's a completely different set of challenges. And it's also extremely different depending on what the ensemble is you're playing with. So while I lived in Boston, I played with an orchestra called BMOP, the Boston Modern Orchestra Project, that just did absolutely brand new compositions and recorded a lot of it, and was never playing anything older than probably 20 or 30 years old. And then I would the next week be playing with the Handel and Haydn Society on gut strings and a Baroque bow, no end pin, and playing, Beethoven or Haydn at the pitch that they would have played it in their day, and a completely different musical aesthetic. So, as a performing musician today, I think you have to have a lot of flexibility, because you don't know what's coming at you from one week to the next. I sat down for a side-by-side the other night with the North Carolina Symphony, with members of the Triangle Youth Orchestra, and this 8th grader who's sitting next to me, when we're finished, turns to me and he asked me how long I've been playing, and I said, yeah, a little more than half a century now, and he kind of looked at me like, wow, he didn't even know what to say. So hard to believe, but it's been a good run. It's been a good run.
Yeah. So we usually finish up with rapid fire questions. So when you are not listening to something that you might be getting ready for to play or for work in some way, what do you like to listen to?
What do I like to listen to? Well, if I'm traveling, I listen to a lot of like books on tapes. I don't listen to any music. I go through stretches where I'm just not interested in going to concerts because I'm practicing and playing concerts all the time. So I have neighbors recently that asked if I wanted to go out to hear a quartet locally. And it's just like, not, I need some downtime. So I spend a lot of time not listening to music because every time I sit down, come in to do my work, that's what I'm surrounded with. But often when I'm traveling, I listen to pop, bluegrass, things that are not necessarily classical at all, especially if it's not something I need to be listening to kind of get ready for a performance. I like for years I spent a lot of time listening to jazz. So I had pretty eclectic tastes. Yeah.
Excellent. And then what are you doing when you're not listening to music at all? Do you have hobbies? What do you like to do for fun?
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of writing, or have done a lot of writing over the years, so that's a huge hobby. We now have 5 dogs living in the house, 2 of which I found abandoned coming back from Columbus this summer, and we've incorporated them into the haven here of animals. We have cats as well, but I'm very much dog-centered type, so I'm walking, given my schedule, somewhere between 6 and 8 miles a day, a lot of dog walks, including this guy right here. And we are raising our granddaughter, so that's a huge amount of time as well. And then family. So it's family besides my immediate family. My mother lives in Greensboro. My brother's in Chapel Hill.
Okay, well, thank you so much for talking with us today, Marc. We are so excited to have you here in Greensboro, November 2nd at Green Hill to talk about your new novel and to hear you play some Bach. And we just can't wait to have you here. Cool.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.